My next guest is Tom Pesce. He is an international speaker, educator, MC, and motivational entertainer. His long client list includes companies such as NASA, Amazon, Google, NBC, NASDAQ, Formula One, and more. He's also been a fourth and sixth grade teacher for 20 years. He has toured as a headliner for Princess Cruises and regularly works with professional sports teams and Fortune 500 companies around the world. And he was recently named Entertainer of the Year and honored by Sight Crystal Awards as Standalone Celebrity Event of the Year. Tom's mission is clear: to make a lasting impact, positive impact wherever he goes. In addition to his award winning stage work, he's also a distinguished educator. He has earned multiple graduate degrees in the fields of elementary education, school administration, and advanced leadership studies. Talking on the podcast today, we're going to talk about his passion using magic and keynotes that he has for school staff, and how he helps individuals and organizations discover their own magic in both their personal and professional lives. Tom lives in Ridgefield, Connecticut with his wife, Becky, and their three children. Well, welcome to the podcast, Tom.
Dana, thank you so much for having me. This is exciting. I can't wait.
So I heard your story on the Teach Better Talk podcast, and I was excited to have you on. I've never had a musician on the podcast before, so we'll start off with time you were in the trenches and managed to crawl out.
Yeah, I've been in the classroom for, as you mentioned, 20 years, fourth grade and sixth grade. And I think right around that middle of my career, about 10 years ago, maybe 11 years ago, I started to feel this suffocation. And part of it was mental, part of it was a very real kind of, I didn't know how to get out of where I was stuck in my classroom setting. In other
Mhm.
words, I was very successful as a fourth grade teacher, had high test scores. It was, high engagement. I had been at my craft now for a decade. I was really firing on all cylinders. And the
Mhm.
problem was, as many teachers will attest to, that there's not a lot of leeway for advancement within the classroom as a teacher, unless you're going to go
Mhm.
into administration or some other realm. And I was starting to feel burnt out. In fact,
Mhm.
the better all my kids did in their test scores and the better I handled behavior cases, what happens? What happens to so many teachers? We get more of those cases, right? And
Mhm.
our principal relies on us because they know that they can count on us to make that happen. And I started to feel like I was giving all of this time to my students and their families and the correspondence and the behavior issues and all of that. Just I would lock the building some nights at 10:30 at night. I was so just overwhelmed with how much it took to be great.
Mhm.
And I saw very quickly as I was getting married and starting a family myself that this was taking away from my own personal life. And how do you find that balance? Well, I didn't want to give my
Mhm.
students less. And so I really was at a crossroads where I was asking myself, could I do something else other than teaching and make
Mhm.
$100,000? There's a lot of other things that I could do, and after a certain point, our salary doesn't scale as much anymore, and we're sort
Yeah.
of there. And are we growing? And for me, it was a matter of growth. If I'm not growing, I feel like I'm dying.
Mhm.
And at that point, it was like mission accomplished in so many ways. Being a fourth grade teacher, I was looking for that next thing, but I
Mhm.
wasn't ready to go into administration for several reasons. I really wanted more time for myself and my family rather than starting a
Mhm.
whole new venture with less time. And so I did something that I would recommend to a lot of teachers who maybe think it's time to get out of the profession or this isn't for me. And
Mhm.
before you give up the ship, I want you to think about a lateral move, because my principal showed up at a staff meeting and said, I hate to tell you all this, but we are going to have to send two teachers to the middle school.
Mhm.
Now, most elementary school teachers were throwing their arms up, not me, not me. And I said, well, wait a minute. Maybe I would like that. My background, even though I'm an elementary school teacher, it was as an English major, and I had my literacy degree up to 12th grade. And I really loved teaching ELA. And I said, well, what if I could teach middle school ELA? It was still in my
Mhm.
certification of sixth grade. And imagine teaching one subject, doing it really, really well, new setting, new building.
Mhm.
And that was exactly the change that I needed. It felt like a whole new career. I loved it. And I think that we have to re-examine every 5 to 10 years, what is it that we're doing? And if we are fulfilled and love it, keep doing it and do it even
Yeah.
better, keep growing. But if we're not growing and we feel stifled, I just hear too many teachers feeling like they need to give up entirely. And sometimes it's just that shift in perspective, or like I said, a lateral move in your own district to
Mhm.
another position. You don't have to interrupt tenure or start over on your salary scale. But boy, did that make all the difference for me.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and it just came at the right time, like you said. Um, them hiring more at the middle school, and they were cutting positions at your school. So I
Right.
think that's an easy shift to make. A lot of teachers kind of get stuck because they're so used to being in the building they're at. But it's really looking at another position or another subject area sometimes that you're endorsed in could be the change that you need. So I introduced you talking about a lot of the work that you do around magic and entertainment. So you started using magic in the classroom when you were teaching, but you also have used it personally. You told me since you were 11. So talk to me a little bit about that journey.
I did. I've always been infatuated with magic. I loved it. And I think the element of magic that I bring into my classroom, because some people are saying, well, I couldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the tricks. It was actually that element of surprise.
Mm-hmm.
When I would see something that I was not expecting, I thought I was following the path. You're on this plot map, sort of down a trail to solve a problem. And all of a sudden something unexpected would happen. My
Mm-hmm.
cousin was a magician and I would watch him all the
Okay.
time. I just loved it. So my family and I were in Boston when I was about 11 years old, and there was a magic shop there. We go in, buy a trick. And by the way, I didn't even test my sound. Am I okay? Because I feel like
Yes.
if anybody's watching, yes, okay. I felt
Mm-hmm.
like one of these was maybe just a little bit like almost like is it this one like a loud, like a bigger sound almost, or is that just um, okay? Never mind. That was stupid. For those only listening, the AirPod in my ear grew about 10 times the size. But I digress. Look, that's my job, right? It's to bring in
uh,
something that's different, exciting. And what did
mm,
I hate about school? I hated the monotony of it. It
yeah.
wasn't that I didn't want to work hard. I realized that kids really love school if they have something to work for and we keep them engaged. Why do we watch shows? Because we're anticipating something that even though we're familiar with and we connect with and we're invested in, but there's going to be something new. We can't just keep watching
Mm-hmm.
the same rerun. And so that for me made a lot of sense. And as I got into teaching, I realized I could actually create this world, not just for my students, but for myself, where I was having fun, I was
Mm-hmm.
fulfilled, and I was keeping them and myself on the edge of our seats of, hey, every day is a brand new adventure. What can happen next? And
Mm-hmm.
that's why we need you back. That's why we need you participating. It's why we need you involved, because this is your classroom. This is your journey, and we're going to get there together. And so magic just represents the possibility that with the thought of something new always comes the thought and hope of something great.
Mm-hmm, hmm. Yeah, that's so important to remember. And looking at just how, you thought outside the box, right? In terms of bringing more entertainment to your classes and working with your students. How did you kind of weave in the magic in teaching fourth grade? Was this more just kind of to get kids' attention, to do something, for engagement, or was it kind of club based?
There always seems to be that metaphor of that you can use a trick to get a message across, which is
Hmm.
true. It's phenomenal. It's really a vehicle to teach things, and oftentimes I do, and I'll use it in that way. But I also really see the construct of a magic trick the way that I
Hmm.
think, and it's the way that I would teach as an English teacher. We think in threes oftentimes, and we also think of a plot map, the story arc having a beginning, a middle, and an end. And not just
Hmm.
that, but when I teach my kids about a protagonist, we know that this main character not only is generally the good person, but the most, I think, important trait of that protagonist is that they go through some real and lasting change.
Hmm.
And so the best magic, in my opinion, it leaves us changed. It actually has us doubting our senses and saying, could that really happen? And not just that the magician did it, but I felt like I did it as an audience
Hmm.
member. And so in teaching, it's I do, we do, and you do. If you can be independent in this task and you can own it, well, that to me is real magic, because at
Hmm.
the end of the day, we are in the business of sales. How do I sell learning? And really,
Hmm.
my kids need to know that they don't want just buy-in. We don't just want to buy
Hmm.
into something,
Hmm.
right? What do we want? We want to invest. We want to invest in it and we want to own it. So that ownership, it's a way to hook them, yes, and have them own their own magic, which is something I speak about and teach teachers how to do this. Find what's unique to you. It doesn't have to be magic tricks. But I just think that way. The
Hmm.
beginning, middle, and end is like a plot map of problem. How are we going to solve it? Some twist in the plot. And
Hmm.
that's really how that works, from, exposition to rising action, climax, and then resolution. And that's how all of this wraps up anytime I'm doing a trick, and again leaves us changed. And I think it just hits home that message of what we're trying to sell. But for
Hmm.
me it's magic, for you it might be music, for someone else it might be art. I think kids are most engaged when we do, and we
Hmm.
demonstrate what we love because that's
Hmm.
palpable. It comes through. And you can just sense it. And it doesn't even have to be something your kids are familiar with, but anything that they can sense you love and you care about, they're going to want to know about it. And chances are they'll start to care about it too and be able to tap into their superpower and find what they love.
Yeah. So, like you're saying, you don't necessarily need to be a magician or have some type of a artistic background to, get your kids engaged. It's finding out how you can relay how you love the subject matter in a way that will engage your students. So it's
That's right.
important to remember. So you've also been doing a lot of PDs and keynotes with teachers and different audiences, like I mentioned in the bio. So let's talk about a few of some of the keynotes that you give. One of them's Own Your Magic, Enhancing Student Performance Through Your Uniqueness, which was kind of what you just talked about. And if teachers out there listening are kind of thinking, well, what makes me unique, and they're kind of in that doldrums of teaching, and they're in this place where they're considering leaving the profession, how can they kind of bring back their uniqueness to the classroom?
Well, it's just that. It's the ability to think about what makes me unique. And I always say, I'm not for everybody, right?
Yeah.
This enthusiasm that maybe you can hear and sense, that may not be the perfect fit for some school districts. In fact, my very
Hmm.
first school district, which I thought was my dream district, I was doing an observation lesson. It was first grade, and everything had been
Hmm.
going great. I mean, I had stuff popping out of the ceilings and the walls, and we were doing magic and role play and all this stuff, performance based everything. And the principal came in and saw this one lesson where we were writing down adjectives, and I can remember it to
Hmm.
this day. We were writing down adjectives for flowers, and somebody said prickly. And I
Hmm.
misspelled the word as I was writing it on a sentence
Hmm.
strip. I was writing large, I was turned around, I was kind of like just not even thinking. And I
Yeah.
think I added an I to the word at the end where it
Yeah.
didn't belong. Well, that principal pulled me aside afterward and said, Tom, do you have a spelling deficiency? I'm a little
Hmm.
bit concerned about this, and I don't think this is going to be the right fit.
Hmm.
Now, he found my one vulnerability. He found my one weakness, the one mistake, and he capitalized on that,
Yeah.
basically taking a 21-year-old kid who's all eager to do this and doing a great job otherwise, and
Hmm.
basically knocked me down in my confidence to here. And I see so many teachers either learning not best practices or hearing and absorbing the negativity from sometimes their
Hmm.
own teachers next to them, or
Yeah.
even being criticized and being found at fault for the one or two mistakes they make. But I want you to realize that we don't have to be perfect. We're not going to be, especially an elementary teacher. There's so many subjects that we are basically in charge of and need to be facile in. However, we can't be perfect. We have to be
Hmm.
real. And when we can
Yeah.
own that and be vulnerable enough to share that, that's the first step. And I think a lot of teachers overcompensate and are guarded because they don't want to make a mistake. They don't want to show their true colors to their
Yeah.
students. But in back to owning your magic, part of that means you've got to open up your heart a little bit too to your class.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know, how many of us are sharing about our family or about something that we're doing this weekend or taking the time to talk about a failure? Students
Hmm.
hearing about your failures, you know, I shared that story I just shared with you with my class every year because
Hmm.
what happened from that point forward was completely out of my control, but still happened the way it was meant to be in
Sure.
ways that I couldn't even anticipate. In other words, I eventually met another principal from another school district that I had never heard of, and they invited
Hmm.
me in to do a demo lesson. And when I did that demo lesson, it just clicked. And from that moment forward, I was welcomed in. It was my dream position at third grade. I then taught fourth grade, and I was at that district ever since. And everything in
Hmm.
my adult life that's good in my life today has happened because of that decision that wasn't in
Hmm.
my control,
Hmm.
but in God's control. And I
Yeah.
met my wife when I was in that district. I've gotten married and had children, and just all the things subsequently that happened. Sometimes we can't control it. So
Yeah.
that came through a failing, and we fail forward. We get through the storm. You can't avoid it, but you got to get through it. And if you can tell your kids that it's a lesson of resilience, then right there, you're owning your magic. That's your superpower. Or
Hmm.
maybe it's a hobby, maybe it's something else, but allowing that to be at the forefront of what you do, maybe even in the background of what you do, it literally made me excited to come to a classroom that I wanted to be in. And so did
Hmm.
my students. It's like a home. My own
Hmm.
daughters, I went to their open house in second grade, and unfortunately, I couldn't say the same for, you know, my youngest daughter's classroom.
Hmm.
It was
Hmm.
not an environment I think the teacher would want to be in, and therefore, I don't think it's an environment that the students want to be in either. So we need to remember that that vibe is reciprocal, and
Yeah.
we need to love not just what we do, but who we are. And you
Yeah.
weren't just chosen to do a job. because you're a teacher. You were chosen to do this job, the most important job, because of who you are. And sometimes
Yeah.
that might be teacher, it might be therapist, it might be a parent, but
Hmm.
you're there because of you. So bring all of those qualities and even failings to the
Hmm.
job because your kids
Hmm.
need that.
Yeah, and I think like there's so many teachers, whether they're younger teachers or veteran teachers, that have that, like, they've been taught when they were doing teacher training that let's keep this kind of distance, and the professionalism, right? That professional distance, but that kind of makes them not open up and be vulnerable to their students, and own our mistakes. I mean, we're still the authority figure, we're the expert on the subject matter, but we do make mistakes, whether it's spelling mistakes or there's things that we've done in life that can be stories for our students, like you said. And I think that's so important. Yeah, like you said, owning what we've done, owning failures that we've had throughout life will help our students also learn resiliency as well. You also have a talk called Back to the Future. So talk to me a little bit about that talk.
Well, Back to the Future is a reference in my talk, which is Own Your Magic. And the reason I bring
Hmm.
it up is because in
Hmm.
that movie, we're reminded that the future is what we make of it. And
Hmm.
so we really have this ability to create a new future for ourselves every single year, which is what I love about teaching. It doesn't just go, around and around and around. It has a beginning and an end. Whether we had a great year or a difficult year, you can restart that and
Hmm.
start that future again. But there's something else about that movie, if you think back to it, those who are familiar, maybe some millennials haven't watched it, watch the movie. It's amazing. But I bring it up because in that movie, Michael J. Fox, who's the protagonist, Marty McFly, he actually wasn't the character that was first filmed in that movie. They did 7 weeks of filming with a totally another Marty
Hmm.
McFly. His name was Eric Stoltz. And
Yeah.
some people know this, some people don't, but there was nothing wrong with Eric Stoltz as an actor. He had all the credentials, he had the training, he was young, he was good looking, he did it right, he knew his lines, but something was missing. And it was that something extra that I'm talking about, owning your magic. Michael J. Fox eventually came on set and they needed him so badly that they refilmed all of those parts because he brought a certain nuance to the role, a certain
Hmm.
humor, a certain indescribable something that was just him, not what he was doing, but who he was, that changed that role and helped it become a cult classic that it is. Cult, what does cult
Hmm.
mean? Culture, right? And he changed the culture on the set, not just through the screen, but from the camera crew to the food services. Everybody felt it. And you have a responsibility to own your culture in your school
Hmm.
because you're a part of it. And that is truly everything you say, do, think, act, feel. And your students are going to absorb that. So I want us to think about this title. Michael J. Fox had the title of
Hmm.
actor,
Hmm.
and so did Eric Stoltz. But we think our title is teacher. It's not. It's really being who our students need us to be because of who we are for them. And that changes it. Title's just based on image. And what
Yeah.
happens with image? Right? Image fades. But value is based on a belief system. And the belief
Hmm.
system that what we do matters so much that I am the person chosen to do this and you were put in my care for a reason. Well, that changes the game because
Hmm.
now we go from just education to vocation. And if it's a
Hmm.
calling, which I believe it is, then it is our duty to tap into who we are to be the best person to serve our students in the best way possible and at our maximum
Hmm.
capacity. So that's where Back to the Future comes in. And if, I always say teaching wasn't my first choice, but if I could do it all over again, it still wouldn't be. It would be my only
Hmm.
choice because it is
Hmm.
truly so important and we get to affect so many lives and really that ripple effect just goes on and on and on.
Hmm. Hmm. And I think the belief system also, like you said, there's a lot of turnover among both teachers and admin. And I think there's sometimes there's this resistance to change. Having been in education for 20 plus years now, and a lot of the talk now we're talking around the use of AI in instruction and even with our admin or curriculum planning. But there's a resistance to that by a lot of educators, and um, like you're saying, it's about owning our magic, but it's also about owning like the things change over time, right? And
Yeah.
how can we, work with the students we have within what we're using now as opposed to 20 years ago.
Right. Right. And I think a lot of people are still afraid of things like AI and the technology that's there, and things have changed, but I
Hmm.
think we need to adapt and embrace it.
Hmm.
Have our students changed? Yeah, to some degree, for
Hmm.
sure, especially since COVID. And so there are new challenges. I think we all hear a lot about discipline and a lot about support from our administration. So that is something that, it has to start from the top up. Leadership is very, very important. But there's this beautiful autonomous nature to teaching that no
Hmm.
matter what's going on and all of the new standards and all of the new administration, and all that turnover, which is going to keep turning over,
Hmm.
you get to still close your door and you get to
Hmm.
teach your students. And great teaching is still great teaching,
Hmm.
regardless of the computer, regardless of the technology, regardless of AI, regardless of your student's home situation. That
Hmm.
is why, again, you were chosen to do this and not a computer, and your students with their particular needs and deficiencies need you to fill them up. And I don't think it's an impossible task. I don't think things have changed all that much when we understand that kids are still at the center of it, and
Hmm.
we know what makes people feel special, and we
Hmm.
know how to serve and give. And when your students know that you love them and care about them, you don't have to be perfect, you just have to be real. The rest will be
Hmm.
forgiven, but you'll make your greatest impact when you start teaching on that level and on that basis of belief system.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, like I think that's really a good takeaway. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to be real. So you also talk a little bit about from burnout to brilliance, and you talk a little bit about when you went from elementary school to middle school, and how you can't necessarily just stay in the same place, or get bogged down by the system, which could be the state or the district or even the school you're in. Talk a little bit about how you encourage teachers to move from burnout to brilliance.
Dana, I think that you would agree that we are best equipped to help the people that we once were. Would you?
Hmm. Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So all I know is that I'm looking right now at myself in the mirror, and I'm seeing, when I look out at a sea of teachers, I'm seeing that 22-year-old kid whose principal dejected him and said I had a spelling deficiency and I wasn't cut
Hmm.
out for this. And then I look at a 28-year-old teacher who's excited about maybe the next step in their life and worrying about how to make ends meet, or the
Hmm.
50-year-old teacher whose kids are growing
Hmm.
up and going to college. And again, your salary hasn't kept keeping up, and this inflation is real, and we're not,
Hmm.
and all of these things can beat us down. And so I started to look at, where was I burning out, like the story I
Hmm.
had when I went to middle school, and what did I do to save myself? Because if we don't put that oxygen mask on, I guarantee you we will get swallowed up. This is not designed to help rewarding us monetarily. We
Hmm.
have to reward ourselves with that level of fulfillment that you cannot quench in any other way. Believe
Hmm.
me, it looks, grass is greener over at MasterCard or Visa or some other, corporate entity, but you get there and you're still going to have a boss who's watching you
Yeah.
and evaluating you, and you're still going to have a salary that's capped, or that you can't get to the next level, or somebody backstab it. The idea is we are responsible for our own joy and our own fulfillment. And even when we're
Hmm.
successful, we can still get burnt out, because that's back to the title thing.
Yeah.
What is fulfilling you? And I thought that the more my principal saw I was doing, and the more my kids, saw everything that I was giving them, and I stayed till 11 o'clock at night, that was going to be what counted. And for them, it probably did. But for me,
Hmm.
I was getting so burnt out, lost relationships, disconnected from my family, not happy as a person. And so what does that do? It spills over into everybody else that I'm supposed to be there for, giving
Hmm.
110% to.
Hmm.
So I've learned that as a father now, with three beautiful girls that I have at home. I mean, the fourth one's so. But it's a joke, Dana. That's a joke. They're all beautiful. I only have three, but I realized that for me to be my best for them, I have
Yeah.
to take care of myself, and for my kids to know that I'm giving my best to them, they have to know that I'm also madly in love with their mom, and that we have to
Hmm.
give to each other first. So it seems selfish, but part of being burnt out to brilliant is making sure that you've done what it takes to protect your own sanity. You don't need
Hmm.
to say
Yeah.
yes to every professional development. Trust me, after 20 years, they're about the same. Go to the ones that are going to move the needle and make the difference. You don't
Uh-huh.
need to be there for every parent after school for everything you're saying. It can be done in an email. And don't be
Hmm.
afraid to take those personal days. I mean, I've accrued over 157 sick days. For what? Use them. Use them,
Hmm.
because you will come back. Even if your kids get a B minus that day with a sub, you're going to come back and they're going to get an A plus the next day, instead
Hmm.
of it being slowly diminished and them seeing that fuse burn lower and lower and lower. So it's real important, so that we don't, get so disgruntled that we think it's the entire system. You cannot let
Mhm.
the system beat you. There are things that we can do to preserve our own sanity. And that's what I talk about at conferences and to school districts. And those are workshops that I provide where teachers walk out of there
Mhm.
saying, oh my gosh, thank you for giving me permission. And thank you for giving me these strategies. In fact, I even have 52 different strategies that you can do one every week that I
Mhm.
give to teachers. And it's a complete game changer in their own sanity and
Mhm.
feeling like they've renewed themselves and reaffirmed their job every single year. If you don't do
Mhm.
that, you're going to burn out.
Yeah, yeah. And that's like you said, it might not be the position you're in. It could just be how you're reacting to the day-to-day work and what you're taking home, et cetera. So you've also been doing a lot of speaking, not only since you've been teaching, but even since college. And was that mostly by doing magic, or were you also just using different life lessons in your speaking earlier on?
Yeah, it was more of just kind of realizing, and I probably didn't realize this until now at 43 years old, when I've really gone full force into the speaking world, that this had been in me all along. And it's
Mhm.
listening to that voice. Like I thought I knew I loved teaching, I knew I loved magic. And then I looked back and I found this old newspaper article that said 2003, Tom Pesce, Sacred Heart University, where I went to school, running leadership conference, and I'm doing this. I guess keynote. I didn't even know what it was called, but that's what I
Mhm.
was doing. And it was just in me. Like every time I saw somebody inspiring, or I would read books on leadership, or I would be part of a leadership conference in some way, shape, or form, I was like, that is my calling. I just didn't
Mhm.
know how do you embrace that as a job. And so
Yeah.
I encompassed a lot of those traits in my teaching. I always loved leadership and servant leadership. I was student body president in school and kind of gravitated towards those positions. But I was able now to realize, yeah, all of this life story is actually your story and
Mhm.
what these other teachers are experiencing. And this is how I think I can make an even greater impact to teach at that next level. And again, just pass that on, pass that forward. But yeah, it's been a part of my life for many, many years, different types of keynotes on leadership and helping companies unlock their magic and how magicians solve problems. And how you can really kind of make a difference in your life when you love what you do and you bring out who you are in your work.
Mhm. Mhm. So important to remember. Well, we've had a great conversation around some of your topics that you speak about, your own trench story and that lateral move that you made out of elementary school into middle school teaching. Out of everything we've talked about, what's one thing you'd like listeners to remember?
I want them to remember that you truly hold the key to your own happiness. And when
Hmm.
I say that, it's not about success, titles, comparing to your neighbors. It's about fulfillment. And I want you to
Hmm.
think about what drove you to think about teaching in the first place. For
Hmm.
many of us, that was a calling we had as a child. And when you go back to what that was at its little origin, and it's blossomed. Don't let all of the other things that are happening diminish that and squelch that fire. We want to take
Hmm.
that burnout, which happens, and really reignite it back into brilliance. And it's in you, it's there. And if it was worth doing and pursuing for you to get here, trust me, you didn't come this far to come this far. It's worth it to keep going and keep reinventing because our kids need you. Trust me,
Hmm.
they need you, and it is truly still the greatest profession in the world. In fact, Dana, before we leave this call, could we just try something? Because I truly feel like when you connect with people, you're able to kind of see a window into their heart. And I'd like to
Okay.
connect with you, if I could, even through the
Sure.
internet, for your listeners and viewers right now. Could we try
Okay.
something?
Yeah.
Dana, do you have a phone on you by chance?
Yes.
Could you open it up here on air? Because with my own students and even my daughters during COVID, we noticed there's a lot out on the internet. Not
Hmm.
all of it's true. And we have
Okay.
to, again, be in charge of our own compass. Where are we
Sure.
going? Okay. I want you to check something for me. They actually, from Google articles to Wikipedia, it's changing every minute. And not
Hmm.
everything we read is true, but they have kept a ticker going of how many articles are constantly revised and published on Wikipedia. I think to the
Hmm.
day, maybe even the hour or minute. Would you
Hmm.
just open your web browser for us right now, Dana? Go to Safari or whatever you use. And I
Hmm.
want you to put in www.wikicount, W-I-K-I count.net. So wikicount.net, it's a literally a running ticker. It'll tell you how many articles up to this minute are on Wikipedia published. Are you there and does it say how many?
Six
Wikicount.
million 910,440
Okay.
541. Yeah.
Okay, we'll just round to 6 million something. Leave that open for a second. I
Hmm.
want you to look below that because it also tells us how many words per article for each of those 6 million and change articles. How many words per article are typically in there?
2,178.
2,178. Now, I'm an English major, so this is kind of important to me. I love
Hmm.
words and I study the import of words. I want us to keep that open. I want us to try one more
Hmm.
thing here. Can
Sure.
you go right below that number and click on the Wikipedia link so that you're taken right into Wikipedia? And I want you to go to the magnifying lens, the search at the top,
Hmm.
and I'm going to ask for you, don't tell me what it is, but I want you to search up a topic that our viewers and our listeners would maybe be familiar with, a famous place, country, activity, sport, actor,
Hmm.
doesn't matter. You know how Wikipedia works. Anything you want, look it up. Just type it in there, search up something, some article should come into view. And when you're ready, after that's done, I want you just to scroll randomly through the article. And I'm
Okay.
going to show you how we land on words that are meaningful to us. Can you just pick out a large word anywhere in that article? Like not because, but like a big word, a multisyllabic word, if you found one. Just the first one you see, or scroll down to the middle, the bottom, doesn't matter. If you have one, just say, I've got it.
I've got it.
Excellent.
Occasions.
Well, you told me, so that makes it a lot easier. I said, "Don't tell me, Dana. It's
Okay.
okay. Yeah, go pick another word. Don't pick that one. Pick a different word and keep it in your mind, Dana.
Okay.
Okay? Magic.
Okay.
We're gonna work across the street,
Sure.
across the screen. Don't tell me what it is. Do you have a big word?
Sure.
Good. Okay. Hopefully it's not sure, but it's just a word. Okay, keep it in
Hmm.
your mind. I
Hmm.
want you to think of the first letter, and I'm going to show you owning your magic is about not reading minds or anything like
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
It's about reading and connecting with people. So,
Hmm.
Dana, I can see right now, what is the first letter? Only the first letter of your word. Tell me.
R.
R. Okay, great. And I want you to look somewhere in the middle of the word and just in your mind, focus on one letter, land on any letter you want in the middle, but don't tell me what it is. I think you went back and forth, but you committed to one. I guess you were indecisive. Was it like a
Uh-huh.
consonant, like an N or an M?
M. M.
Okay, keep it there. Keep it there. That's crazy. And I want you to look at the end of the word, the very end of the
Yeah.
word. And I'm going to just ask you one more question. Can you
Hmm.
count to three out loud slowly?
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, you're very like mono, very, very even keel. I like that. I like that means you're very calm and you make me calm, but it also shows that that's probably
Uh-huh.
like a four-fourths beat, almost like a beat, a rhythm. Like, are there four syllables in your word?
I'm pretty sure there are, yes.
All right, I'm just gonna try to go with my gut here. And if you're listening
Uh-huh.
to this, it might freak you out, but just tell me if I'm on the right track, because there's about three different choices I could be close
Hmm.
to. But are
Hmm.
you thinking of a word right now recommended?
Yes.
That's crazy. Okay, but wait, keep it there, Dana, because there's one more thing that you did that nobody knows. This could have been
Hmm.
high frequency words, stuff that comes up. I'm
Hmm.
an English major, and a magician, but you thought of a word and you thought of a topic that you
Hmm.
wanted to search up. I'm not in your home.
Hmm.
I'm here in Connecticut. Where are you, Dana?
Colorado.
Colorado. So we could not be further away. I want you to think about just whatever it was that you looked up, and I'm going to use this like a
Okay.
movie screen. And I
Okay.
feel like when people connect, this is where the real magic happens. So just
Uh-huh.
just focus on me because I can already tell. Um, yeah. Okay, this is interesting. I think it's a place. And I could tell from your body language right now, it's a place that you enjoy being, not maybe physically, but mentally. You've
Okay.
gone there and it's something that gives you peace. Am I on the right track?
What I searched up?
Yeah, no, I'm not on the right track. Okay, don't tell me what it is, but
No. It's not a place.
oh, interesting. No, I kind of am getting a place. I think it is. I feel like it's a state of mind, but not an actual state of, maybe it's a person who's actually created a state of mind for us because of what you've
Hmm.
given me so far. I've been able to read that and I feel like you've tried to connect with me.
Okay.
This is so weird. Dana, what or who are you thinking of?
The person I searched up was Harry Houdini.
Harry Houdini?
Yes.
That's crazy because that's exactly what I had. What? Come on, give it up for Dana. That is exactly what I wrote, Harry Houdini. Come on. Unbelievable. You saw it here, folks, right here. Make sure you tell your friends about it. Share this with them, and we can do this with you live or in your school or conference. Dana, thank you so much for having me on and being so much fun. That was amazing.
Yeah, no, that was really cool. That was really cool. So, as we wrap things up, please let listeners know where they can connect with you and find you online if they'd like to have you in for a keynote or staff training.
I would love that. We can even do it virtually. So let me know. It's Tom, and my last name is Fish in Italian.
Mhm.
Pesce. It's like Joe Pesci, but he has an I have an E. So it's Tom Pesce, Tompesce, official. That's on Instagram. You can find me there, or just email me at info@tompesce.com. Tompesce.com is where my website's at, and would love to help you, your school, or just answer any questions, or just hang. You can see a whole bunch of crazy stuff on my Instagram as well, and my website, Tom Pesce Official. Dana, thank you so much.
It was a pleasure having you on the Out of the Trenches podcast today.